Alright, Joe, there it is, my fucking house. It's Saturday morning. I didn't go out last night. I did nothing. I was too tired because I fucking work 12 hours. I do every day. And now I'm working on Saturday. I cannot afford to live here. I cannot afford to eat. And yet I'm working that much. You know what I mean? Anyway, if anyone can help me find new housing, dude, I gotta get out of here. Like, not being able to have visitors. Like, I haven't had a visitor. I lived here for 2.5 years now. 2.5 years. This is now number 4 on longest I've lived at places. Number 1 was 702 North Piedmont Street, where I grew up on the east side. I lived there from age 2 through 18. That got 16 years. That's our number 1. Number 2 was 5610 Wood Lane in Shepherd Hills. That's where my baby's mom and my children still live. I still pay the mortgage on that house. I just don't live there. But I lived there 5 years. And then there was ATO, my fraternity. I lived there for 4 years. And then after that was my house I bought in Shepherd Hills a few years ago. I lived there too. That's, you know, I mean, I move a lot in life, dude. It sucks. It sucks. If you can help me get out of the Y, please help me. But that's not what today's show is on. I want to do a show this morning, and I didn't do any research. So I'm going completely a cappella out of my brain. So if you find anything wrong with what I'm saying, that's fine. Call me out on it. If you can prove me wrong. But what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about, it's really 2 stories in one, but it's the story of King Tut, because it's also, King Tut is also the story of Howard Carter. I don't know the actual date that King Tut lived. He was a member of the 18th, a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. I think it was the 1300s BC, 12 or 1300s BC is when King Tut lived. He definitely lived well before 1000 BC, okay? He lived in the Bronze Age. And Howard Carter lived in 1922. Howard Carter is the archaeologist who is, he's pretty much, I guess you would, I don't want to say the Babe Ruth of archaeology, but he's the Mac. He's the #1 archaeologist of all time because he found King Tut. He didn't do much else besides find King Tut's tomb, but that was the find of, nothing will ever compare to the finding of King Tut's treasure. I mean, look, when you, in Egypt, if you don't understand archaeology, if you think that like archaeologists, that's all they're into is going and finding treasure, you would be dead wrong. Archaeologists do not give a fuck about gold. They don't want it. If you're on an archaeological dig, the last thing you want to find is gold, because it sets off your workers all crazy. People start stealing shit. Like, everything goes nuts when they find gold. Well, Howard Carter found gold in a big way. Because every pharaoh, every single pharaoh that was known up until that point, and King Tut is the only one like this, every single other pharaoh's tomb was robbed in antiquity. Like, there was at one time where I don't think the Great Pyramid ever had treasure in it, but 1 or 2 of the other pyramids housed the pharaoh's treasure, and there was other pyramids that housed treasure. Them shits got robbed by the builders. All right, the Valley of the King. And the pyramids were built in the Old Kingdom. Pyramids are an old thing. That's like the 2000s BCs. That went way out of style because they kept getting robbed. So they started building these tombs in the middle and definitely the late kingdoms, which happened, you know, centuries later. And most of what you know and see of Egypt is from the New Kingdom. There's not a lot of shit left from the Old or even the Middle Kingdom. There was 3 kingdoms in Egypt, and that lasted, when we talk about the 3 kingdoms, that you're talking about a period which lasted from 3100 BC all the way to about 33 BC when Cleopatra dies. So that's almost over 3,000 years of history, and they went through times when there was no king. They got sacked. They got, you know, pharaohs got ousted and shit. But the 3 greatest, you know, big strings of centuries together where Egypt had good years was called each called the Old, the New, and the Middle Kingdom. King Tut was from the New Kingdom. So, what's the deal with King Tut? Why do we know him so much? It's because Howard Carter in 1922 discovered it, and that shit went, you know, on the radio, and it went worldwide, and, you know, there wasn't TV yet, but if there was, it would have, you know, hit the media. It was a modern thing, basically. It wasn't even 100 years ago yet, and that happened. When you talk about King Tut, you have to, and just to get back to the Pharaoh's tombs, the Valley of the Kings in the New Kingdom is where pharaohs started burying themselves. They started making these big, elaborate holes in rocks that were tombs, but they were very long and big, and they put treasure in them, and every one of them got robbed in antiquity. Every one of them was, almost all of them were robbed by the people who were the builders. And then pharaohs started like killing all the, like once they died, they would kill all the people who were part of the construction team, and that still didn't work. Like nothing could stop tomb robbers. Somehow or another, King Tut's tomb, he was a boy king, okay? He died when he was 19 years old, 18 or 19. He was an insignificant king. He was an unpopular king, not because he did anything bad, but because his father did shit that got Egypt into some hot water. So, whether it's because it was forgotten, whether it's because whoever put it there glazed it over and like made it look like disguised it somehow, I think that's what they think happened. Like somehow all the tomb robbers thought there ain't shit there, and really there was everything was there at King Tut's tomb. So, and by the time Howard Carter got to Kings Valley, most of the tombs had already been excavated. They thought there was nothing left to find, and he kept finding these little clues that there was this pharaoh that died, and everyone just forgot about him. He just kind of got swept under the blankets of history. So he ended up, you know, that's a big long story in itself, the Howard Carter story. I'm not going to go into the Howard Carter story, but just know that it has to do with the curse of the pharaoh. Pretty much everyone who was involved with Carter's like dig for King Tut's tomb died mysteriously. Like his benefactor, Lord Carnarvon, the guy who was paying for all this shit back in England for this to happen, he died of a fucking tsetse fly bite while he was shaving. Like dumb shit kept happening. Everyone kept dying weirdly and mysteriously, except Howard Carter for some reason. So that's the curse of the pharaoh, if you ever wonder what that is. But they say it has to do more with bacteria than, because there's like a lot of musty old shit locked in that tomb, and it's 3,000 years old. It's nasty for you when you open up a king's tomb. But all right, King Tut. Now King Tut, again, he was born into the 18th dynasty of pharaohs. His father's original name was Amenhotep IV, but when his father was a young man, he became king. And I don't know what the hell the story is, why he changed his mind or what hit him, but they say, they don't know if it was because the Jews were in Egypt at that time, that they made like somehow the pharaoh saw them and wanted to become a one God religion, or if it's the other way around, like the Jews got the idea of one God religion from this pharaoh. But and also the word amen at the end of every prayer, that's Egyptian, just so you know. Like that happened while having to say amen. Amen is Ammon is the #1 god in Egypt. So like I think the Jews were forced to say that at the end, officially, his name at the end of every prayer, and we still do that. Weird, I know. But all right, so Amenhotep IV decided there is not many gods. There's not Isis, and there's not Osiris, and there's not Ptah is one of the gods. Bes is one of the gods. He said there's only one God, and it's the life-giving force of the sun named Aten. So he changed his name from Amenhotep the fourth to Akhenaten, which means the life-giving rays of the sun. And he changed Egypt, all the temples. Like, there's a whole layer of their economy that has to do with the priest class. Like, all that shit he just wiped out. And history still can't tell if this guy was the greatest for doing that, or if he was a freaking total tyrant ass, like Joseph Stalin type dude for doing it. But Egypt didn't like it. The world was not ready for monotheism, and Egypt was definitely not the country to do it in. He moved the capital from Thebes, or from Memphis, where all the pyramids and the temples and a lot of what you see when you see Egypt is there. He moved to this like stretch of desert with like no water whatsoever in the middle of nowhere called Amarna. Now, I did this video today because one of my friends, my boy Ziner, who I did a video on, and my boy Cone also commented on it. Another guy I did a video on. They put a picture up of Nefertiti, the bust of Nefertiti, the famous Nefertiti was Akhenaten's wife and possibly King Tut's mother. Her name means, Nefertiti means in Egyptian, the beautiful one has come. If you've probably seen the bust. There's a real beautiful statue of an Egyptian woman. She almost looks like she's like bald, but she's wearing like a pharaoh hat and just has a really pretty face. That's her, Nefertiti. So that was his queen. They had several children, most notably of which were King Tut and Ankhesunamun, his sister. Now, in royal families in Egypt, brothers married sisters. They did that Targaryen type shit. So, and when you're like, with what was going on in King Tut's life, like all he really had was his court, was, his best friend was his sister. They had to roll together everywhere they went. So that was pretty much all he had. And look at, Egypt was rioting while King Tut's dad, Akhenaten, was chilling in the middle of the desert worshiping Aten. The rest of Egypt was on fire. So, all right. So basically, Egypt was rioting. There was unrest. Armies were forming. I'm telling you, it has to do with the priestly class. If you think that like corrupt church officials are something new or modern, you're crazy. All right. This is as old as humanity itself, and I'm telling you, especially in the type of religion and just the economy that the ancient Egypt had, the priests, all the knowledge was in the priests. The priests acted as banks. The priests acted as like the trade centers. You know what I'm saying? Like the temples were the world trade centers of Egypt. So they had a lot of power, and they didn't like this shit. And they overthrew him. He eventually got killed, Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh. And when he died, it was law. King Tut was his son. He was next in line, and he became king. Only problem was he became king at age 9. So when you have that, it's called a regent. And usually regencies are run by like either other people in the family, or and King Tut's, most of his family got killed during this whole mess, or it's run by your officials, and that's what happened to King Tut. Basically, his Grand Vizier took over and never looked back. Eventually, and basically King Tut's reign, all it was just a puppet reign. King Tut was not a great king, like his name, but he did not do anything magnificent or dope. He basically was used by his Grand Vizier little by little as he got older and older. Him and his sister were supposed to get married. And we have all these we have these letters. See, now at the time of Egypt and King Tut and the new kingdom, the other world power was the Hittites. The Hittites lived in what's now Turkey. And Ankhesunaten kept writing these letters to the kings of Turkey saying, "Help me," you know, like I refuse, like I refuse to marry a commoner. I want to marry my husband, and because she knew that they were going to kill King Tut, and then they eventually did. Now the autopsy that's performed both in 1922 by Robert Derry and by the modern, like they keep doing shit like Egypt. Zawi Hawass is the fucking guy in Egypt now. He's a fucking douchebag, but he does shit on he just did something like 5 years ago on King Tut's body. Like they don't have all the legal rights to do it whenever they want, but every so often they fuck with what's left of King Tut's body, and he died from blunt trauma to the head. Somebody whacked him in the back of the head. All right, so once he, like, you know, he lasted maybe 5-10 years. Or he ascended the throne at age 9. He died at 19, so he lasted 10 years. By the time he started growing pubic hairs and, you know, getting an attitude or whatever, they were like, we got a plan for you, buddy. And this High Vizier, his name was A-Y. It's a funny word, but once King Tut was out of the way, he was like an old, greasy, slimy, Jafar-looking motherfucker, I guess. And he was like, "No, you will marry me, Akasunaten." So she kept writing letters to the Hittites. "Yo, I'm not going to marry a commoner. I won't marry my help. Please send me one of your sons and I'll marry them and they can be king of England." We have those letters. We have responses. And the king of the Hittites even sent one of his sons in a royal procession to Egypt, and when they got to Egypt, they were murdered. Yes, it's true. So, oh fuck. Anyway, I'm gonna miss my bus. King Tut. That's his story. Eventually, I went on to become Pharaoh, and then he got killed by another guy who started, I forget what his, I don't have it with me. I didn't do my research last night, but the guy that, like, there was a bunch of, Horemheb. Horemheb was the leader of the army, and I think he killed Ai, and then somehow through Horemheb, I think his son might have been Ramses the First, and then that started the 19th dynasty. After whatever the story is with Horemheb, like Tut, Ai, Horemheb, then Ramses the First, 19th dynasty. I'm probably screwing something up there, but anyway, that's the story of King Tut. I wish I could have given you more in-depth detail, but this was a long video. Enjoy your Saturday. I'm gonna work. But tonight, I'm at the Hot Plate Soul Kitchen with Redbird and Claudio Pinto. And hopefully my children will be at that gig, because it's all ages welcome. Please, come on out. World according to Romance. Peace.